From the National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your routine Thursday weekly briefing for Central North Carolina. Today's briefing covers the period August 20 through 26. Basically right through the middle of next week. Next Wednesday is when this briefing covers, today through next Wednesday. Let's jump right into the big question that everybody's wondering. What is going on in the tropics? So the background image is the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. In fact, all these graphics are from the Hurricane Center. And I want to point out that there's 3 systems out there in the Atlantic. Number one, starting from, well, let's start in the Caribbean there. 14, TD 14 as of 11 o'clock is forecast to basically move towards the Bay of Campeche and then into the Gulf of Mexico and essentially heading up towards the Texas, Louisiana coast during basically early next week. So that really is obviously not a concern for us. Let's shift gears and go out to the east. And the National Hurricane Center is tracking a tropical wave over Western Africa that is expected to move over the far eastern tropical Atlantic on Friday, and then they expect that system to slowly develop, giving it a 40% chance of formation over the next 5 days. So clearly the Cape Verde season is getting going. We're headed into we're headed into the peak of the hurricane season, so no surprises there. Now TD 13, as of 11 o'clock advisory, basically shows winds sustained around 35. Remember, it takes 39 miles per hour to make a tropical storm. That is expected to happen, though, as we head through basically later today and Friday. And notice the track. Look how that track there goes north of Puerto Rico, north of Dominican Republic and Haiti, north of Cuba, through the Florida Straits and into the eastern Gulf of Mexico as a hurricane. Now, clearly, that's a system we'll have to keep our eyes on because, the moisture, even if that was a perfect forecast, right? If that's a perfect forecast and that's exactly where it goes, then eventually the moisture associated with that, when it makes a landfall, say, whether it's in Florida, the Panhandle, or even the Northeast Gulf of Mexico, Gulf Coast, eventually that moisture would get drawn up towards the Carolinas with time. So that's a system of concern. But also what I want to point your attention to, now this next graphic I'm going to show here, this one right here, this is not current. Okay, let me reemphasize, this is not current. This is an archive image of back on July 28th. And back on July 28th, this was potential Tropical Cyclone 9, which eventually became Hurricane Isaias. And look at that track. So that's an archive of what became Isaias back on the 28th of July. Compare that to the current image, which is TD 13, and look how similar those tracks are. So the bottom line is that anytime there is a system out in the Atlantic, we have to really keep a watchful eye on any system and frequently check forecast updates. Let me underline that. Frequently check forecast updates. Now, you know what? This is a good opportunity now to review and improve your hurricane preparedness plans. Of course, back on remember, this is eventually what became Isaias. Now we all know what happened with Isaias. It turned more to the right and came up to the Carolinas, made landfall there, near the North Carolina, South Carolina border, just east of there. And so ultimately forecasts can change, and here's the current TD 13. So again, I'm not saying that's going to happen again. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but I'm saying that anytime there's a system out in the Atlantic, particularly in the, as we head through the peak or getting into the busy part of the tropical cyclone season, we need to always check forecast updates. Make sure your hurricane preparedness plans are in good shape. Refresh your storm kit. Now's an opportunity to do that. And you probably had a chance when Isaias moved across our area to exercise your storm plans. So definitely review that and see if you need to strengthen any part of your plans. Okay, so let's go to the rest of the weather. And essentially a stationary boundary across the Carolinas And you can see that on the today and Saturday maps at the top there. That boundary will provide an opportunity for increased rain chances today through Saturday. The enhanced cloud coverage and rain coverage should keep temps a bit cooler out of the 90s. So I'm not saying it's going to rain the whole time, but it is going to be a little bit cloudier than usual, and that should help keep temps out of the 90s. Early next week, we'll see a downturn in the daily rain chances thanks to high pressure. You see that the early next week slide. But that means we'll probably warm back up with daytime highs approaching 90. And then beyond that, our forecast will depend on what ultimately happens with TD13. And even if TD13 becomes a Gulf of Mexico storm that is, making some sort of landfall in the Gulf of Mexico, northeast Gulf of Mexico is shown in the middle of next week's slide there. Even if that happens, odds would still favor increased rain chances for central North Carolina during the middle to latter part of next week as leftover moisture associated with TD13 moves northeast across the Carolinas. So again, just a reminder that we need to stay tuned, okay? And we're headed into a potentially maybe a wet period one way or another. Speaking of wet period, here is the accumulated precip forecast maps. And you can see just kind of the scattering of coverage here today, scattering of coverage on Friday and Saturday as well. Nothing really too well defined. Heck, some places could even stay dry, while other places see a good downpour. So it's just pretty scattered. But for the most part, if you averaged it all out, most places in the next 3 days will see around an inch or so of rain. And then things kind of take a downturn Sunday and Monday, maybe even into Tuesday and Wednesday, a little bit of a brief break from the increased rain chances. But then look at how things, though, just to our south. If you look at the Tuesday and Wednesday slide, look at that swath of rain off the Carolinas and a swath of rain there, basically in the northeast Gulf of Mexico. Eventually, that rain from what is now TD13, eventually that rain's going to make its way north and probably factor into our weather during the second half of next week. All right. So in terms of the excessive rainfall outlook, this is courtesy of the Weather Prediction Center. Basically, the key point here is isolated flash floodings are possible across parts of the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic regions the next couple of days. The areas highlighted green indicate the areas that have a increased chance, at least marginal chance of flash flooding. Now, outside of the green area, you can never roll out an isolated flooding of low spots. So the key point is whether you're painted green or not, never drive through areas where water covers the roadway. All right. So then looking at our severe thunderstorm potential for the next 3 days, you can see there's a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms today and Friday across the south and southwest portions of North Carolina. Damaging straight line wind is the most likely severe hazard associated with this thunderstorm risk. All right, so wrapping up the routine slides here, and you can kind of see down there at the bottom, the temperatures, a little bit more pleasant than what we saw during a big chunk of July. Highs only in the mid 80s, but that's due to increased cloud coverage and rain chances. So that stationary boundary will provide those rain chances today through Saturday, and keeping it a little bit cooler. Next week, early next week particularly, we'll see a downturn in the daily rain chances. We can't eliminate the daily rain chances, but a little bit lesser rain chance. But that'll mean it'll warm back up with highs approaching 90. And then beyond that, our forecast will depend on what ultimately happens with TD13. And even if TD13 becomes a Gulf of Mexico storms, odds still favor increased rain chances for us or in the middle to latter part of next week as leftover moisture gets drawn across the Carolinas. So you want to stay tuned. In terms of hazards and impacts, there's a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms today, mainly across the south and southwest tiers of North Carolina. Straight line winds is the most likely risk. Now, keep in mind, isolated flash floods are possible across the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic next couple days. Be watchful for prolonged heavy downpours, even outside of the marginal flash flood area, because that could quickly result in heavy downpours. That is, can result in isolated flooding of low spots. So the turn around, don't drown saying. Never drive through areas where water covers the road. And just again, not to sound like a broken record, but I think it's worth reiterating, we're entering the most busy part of the tropical season. So we need to keep a watchful eye on systems that are out in the Atlantic and frequently check updates. Be sure to review and improve your hurricane preparedness plan and refresh your storm kit. So that covers our routine slides that we show every Monday and Thursday. But our hydrologist prepared these slides, and I thought take this opportunity while I got folks on the line here, and even those who are watching via YouTube after the fact, to share a few flood outlook slides for central North Carolina. And the key points, we'll just kind of get to the bottom line up front here with up front here with these key points is that nearly all of central North Carolina has seen at or above normal rainfall this summer. It's been a basically wet summer. Portions of the Northwest Piedmont, as well as the Eastern Piedmont and Coastal Plain, have received as much as 200 to 300% of normal rainfall in the past 30 to 60 days. All USGS reporting sites are reporting at or above normal stream flow. So basically, there's more water flowing through the stream and river system over the past 28 days, which is somewhat uncommon for August. Normally in August, we don't get the stream flows that we are seeing right now. Many reservoirs are reporting lake levels at or above their normal August guide curves. Although, seasonal efforts continue to draw down those levels, so that efforts are ongoing. And lastly, want to remind folks that remember Hurricane Isaias? We saw basin averages of just 2 to 4 inches. I say, just, but I mean, that's a lot of rain, but still 2 to 4 inches, that caused some minor river flooding. So you can imagine that if we got a slow moving tropical, cyclone of some type this season with, double or triple those rainfall amounts, just imagine the kind of flooding that could happen. When even a modest 2 to 4 inches caused minor river flooding on the news. So a couple slides to kind of reemphasize those points. I've already showed this. The tropics are busy. So, and it's no surprise. Obviously, we've had 12 named systems. I believe 11 at this point, which is already up to this point, which is really, honestly, that's a whole season's worth. So we've essentially already had a season's worth of activity. And we haven't even got really into the peak of the season. So it clearly is a busy season. There'll be lots of opportunities for more. And look at the last 30 and 90-day rainfall. 30 is at the top there. But the point is that most of central and western North Carolina have received normal rain, above normal rainfall, above normal rainfall over the past 90 days. Some areas receiving 150 to 200% of normal. And even going back to, to some heavy rains we had in the cool season, caused some river flooding. So the point is that, a couple inches of rain in any system can cause some river flooding. So anyway, that's the key point there. Here's a graph to basically graphically depict what I mentioned earlier, is that all USGS stream flow reporting sites are at or above normal over the past 28 days, which is somewhat uncommon for August. We are in no drought right now. So here's the latest drought outlook, or not drought outlook, but drought monitor. So there's, obviously that's pretty obvious, right? And then the groundwater, thanks to the courtesy of the North Carolina Department of Water Resources here, this map shows the groundwater is things are pretty wet. So things are primed for the potential, if we do get a heavy rain event, that flooding could evolve fairly quickly. And again, the 6 to 10 day outlook, courtesy of the Climate Prediction Center, shows odds favoring above normal rain for us. The 8 to 14 day outlook from the Climate Prediction Center favors above normal rain for us. So, the wet pattern that we've had looks like the theme is going to continue. So, I don't want to alarm anybody, but I just want to, just let folks know that, we've seen above normal rain. We have above normal stream flow. Reservoirs are reporting lake levels at or above their August guide curve. So, and we've seen that even with Isaias, just 2 to 4 inches of rain gave us minor flooding on the Neuse River Basin. So all this is adding up to basically the main point, which I want to make here, is that we need to be ready to take action if we find ourselves in a situation where a slow-moving tropical cyclone with heavy rain amounts are in the forecast. If we find that situation in the forecast, we need to know that flooding is going to be obviously a big concern. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's not a prediction. I'm just saying it's a sort of a what if scenario. So what do you do to prepare? Well, you go over your flood plans. You figure out what areas are more susceptible for flooding, and if you have a home, business, office, or area that's susceptible to flooding, know that obviously those same areas could be at risk if we get a slow-moving tropical cyclone to dump heavy rain over us. And for those watching us on YouTube, if you're new to the area, you just say you just moved here. Ask your neighbors, ask the folks in your community what areas are susceptible to flooding, so that you can be ready with the next tropical cycle. It's not if a next tropical cyclone is going to affect us; it's when. So obviously this year, with all the systems out there, our concern is obviously elevated. So with that, that wraps up our routine weekly briefing and our special flood outlook that we wanted to share with folks today on this 20th of August, 2020. So thanks again for watching the slides. If you are live on GoToMeeting or after the fact on YouTube, thanks for joining.